Alright, so DMZ was officially showcased with some footage in a, well, mostly spectating perspective trailer, but an extended look followed up by a COD pod that showcased a bit more details, mostly recapping what we learned about and discussed yesterday, but also giving a few things of noteworthy clarification and more specific details that we didn't know about yesterday. So a little extra bonus DMZ video here today that I didn't have this on the content calendar initially, but so far I'm intrigued, so more than happy to talk about this a little further with you guys. But anyways, drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe for more DMZ coverage along with plenty of other FPS content. I'd love to have in the community. And finally, check out my friends over at Advanced GG, where code Espresso can get 10% off your entire order. But more on that later. For now, let's get into it. So first thing, let's talk about this trailer itself. This, I feel like, was a weird way to present this for a lot of people because being that it's a sort of gameplay trailer, right, you'd expect a little bit more actual gameplay from the perspective of like the regular player, like what we'd be experiencing. However, most of it is not from the first person perspective, but rather an almost over the shoulder look. It's from the helmet cam here at this. I kind of think that if you're showing this off for the very first time, it's a little silly to showcase first-person perspective for legitimately 20 seconds of that. Technically, even less if you consider the animation of the execution starts a few seconds before the swap to the helmet cam and the spectating. But to have that following near 4 minutes or so just be the helmet cam is an interesting take, and I think is one of the off-putting things that I've seen people talk about with this trailer. I get you want to showcase the fact of like, oh, you're dead, this is now how you spectate your squad, but I feel like you could have swapped to a regular first-person perspective to give a better feeling of what everything looks like. But I mean, they're probably saving that, I guess, for a full gameplay reveal as mentioned by the official COD socials, but at the same time it's just kind of an odd decision. Narratively though, what we see from this, it sets up a cool extension of the storyline. Might be some campaign spoilers given that North Korean forces are in control here. Tonally, I like what Hajin has to offer. It looks really cool in my opinion in terms of the locale that we've seen a little bit from this trailer and some of the B-roll footage we've seen for other talking points through this and the COD pod. But separating that helmet cam view of what we saw and then the first person perspectives we'll experience, the world itself I personally think looks cool. Now, we didn't get a whole ton in relation to brand new things out of this gameplay trailer, except for a few things. We saw that there are night vision goggles, seemingly a craftable item from what we learned previously, that we can probably unlock the recipe for that at some point. But also one of the big things that players are focusing on is the Dragon Revive mechanic showcase. This obviously being something we saw within Battlefield 6 was a sort of key pillar of the new mechanic sets in that game. This will be the first time we see this within Call of Duty. I'm sure for some this will kickstart some arguments of like Call of Duty copying Battlefield regardless of development time, and personally while you can have any take on that you want, I truly don't care. I'm just happy that that actually is coming over into something that is like this, a more tactical, your life matters type of mode, that if this happens you're just not out in the middle of the open and waiting and hoping somebody doesn't shoot you while you're reviving your teammate. So cool to see that mechanic showcased. But again, outside of that, there really wasn't a whole ton that was showcased from this trailer that really stood out and was something that was like, this is brand new. It just showcased a little bit of what we kind of expected and was more so, I think, kind of just a like setup for the world of Hajin and DMZ that we'll see, that it was a basic understanding of like what the extraction genre looks like in that capacity. Now, the Call of Duty team did put out a new COD pod, this being another 40 minutes of roundtable discussion, mostly recapping or chatting, but there are a few things that did stand out as either important clarifications or entirely new info from this that I think are worth noting. Firstly, let's start out with the topic of dedicated progression. So they reiterated on this position of operator leveling. It seemed like it was something that was going to be DMZ specific for your XP going to your levels and everything here at this, but to the full extent of like what that means, whether it will be like completely disassociated like how we had multiplayer, zombies, and blackout prestiges in Black Ops 4, or if there's some sort of overarching ranking system we've had the last couple of years where like how zombies, multiplayer, and endgame all go towards one leveling system. We don't know if it's one or the other, a hybrid system of the two where like you have an overall player level, but your DMZ operator levels are different. We don't know that specifically just yet, but you are going to have dedicated XP and progression that will be earned through DMZ activities that will help you rank up and upgrade your active duty slots. This also applies to locations, vendors, and items in your forward operating base. Now, as your active duty operators rank up, you'll have the ability to unlock more skills in the skill tree, and then also level up your dog tags, similar in nature to DMZ 1.0, though I think the distinction here at this was that, if I'm not mistaken, the DMZ 1.0 dog tags were correlated to the exfil streaks, which, like, yeah, if you're in a game and you get out successfully, you're going to get more XP than if you don't, but it's not necessarily one-to-one tied there. But we also learned a little further about the exfils, or rather unsuccessful exfils, with the MIA system, that being introduced to essentially allow you to buy the services of the extraction team in-game after you die to keep that operator in place so you don't lose all the progression you put forth towards it. Now, what was expanded upon is another key piece of that information for that MIA system. The extraction availability doesn't seemingly go away, or doesn't for a long while. My initial thinking when this was introduced and when we were showcased this in our pre-reveal briefing was that, okay, I died, I have to choose right then and there if I want to end up saving that operator or not. But they detailed that this is actually something that will still be there. Like, you can kind of scroll past your active duty slots and then you'll see that one is MIA. You can choose to still pull them back for that price tag associated with that service after match 1, 2, 10, 20, 50, 100, whenever. The option appears to be there for the entirety. Maybe until like a wipe or something, but that's a different story for a different day. It's just not something you have to do right then and there. So that, say, if you don't have the cash to end up bringing that operator back, you can go out with a different operator, bring back cash, and then pay for it that way. So you always seemingly have that opportunity, which is interesting in how that's going to affect the gameplay loop. Next, they expanded upon the FOB, or forward operating base. This is going to have, of course, your vendors, your different crafting stations and stuff like that, a firing range, which is definitely cool, your kind of home base for all your gear. But they did appear to kind of confirm that it might actually be like World War II's headquarters to a degree, where you can walk around, run around, slide around, all that kind of stuff, the forward operating base that you're in. It just won't be the sort of scale that we saw within World War II's headquarters, which is still cool. It's only for you and your squad, as it appears, and it won't be this massive undertaking that, like, multiple different squads are meeting up on one server of an FOB. You're just going to have your friends be able to interact with you in that immediate location, which is kind of cool. They also did mention, though, there is quick navigation that's also available if you don't want to walk around. So, like, again, similar to how we compared to it in the reveal video about Speranza and Arc Raiders, where you have just the options to see those locations, but you can't actually walk around in it. So that's something that's a bit more of a distinction now for the FOB. Now, real quick, there is a lot more to talk about here, but wanted to quickly mention my partners and friends over at Advanced GG. We've been partnered for a bit now, but a bit more under the radar the last few months, but now we're ramping up as we go into the summer, where Advanced is the healthier energy supplement option. I use it daily as my comparable cup of coffee, currently drinking the raspberry lemonade and magic rainbow sherbet. Those are my two favorite flavors that I'd highly recommend. We actually even co-branded the rainbow sherbet along with a few other items on their site, like a 26-ounce ice shaker, but unrelated, I do love their stuff. If you're looking for a replacement for your own cups of coffee, give this a try. If you decide to give it a go, code espresso, you can get 10% off your entire order, but absolutely no pressure at all. I appreciate you just hearing me out and, of course, stopping by the channel. But anyways, let's get back to it. DMZ details. Looting is a big thing within an extraction shooter, right? I'm a big fan of what they detailed here about this, where there's going to be some sort of logical layer to how looting works. It's not just going to be arbitrary, where any container you end up searching within the world of Hajin will give you any specific amount of gear. This, they detailed basic categories of what we can expect for how looting and that logic will pertain to the items we can pick up in world, where military gear, if you want that, so like weapons or like maybe a plate carrier or something like that, that'll be found in police stations. Medical gear can be found in clinics or hospitals. Printing materials, so things for your 3D printer and crafting out in the FOB, will be in residential and gas stations. Radiation gear, if you want to probably go closer to where that nuclear facility was, will be in fire stations. Money will end up being found in vaults and cash registers around the world. And then bandages, they said that this is of course something that needs to be readily available, is that every bathroom generally has a medicine cabinet. So similar to what we saw in the DMZ beta in Modern Warfare 2, how there was a medicine cabinet, you could end up pulling things like a stim shot or a bandage out of that. That same kind of logic applies, but all of looting and what you can see will be built around logic and gives purpose to the looting so that you know consciously where you should be going, even though that RNG will still be persistent, that it's not going to guarantee you things every single time, but you at least know where you should be looking. They also said if you don't find what you need, you can always go back to your FOB and print those with a 3D printer. Likely some of those things still requiring recipes to find in world before you can craft those, but you get the broad general perspective here at this. They also mentioned that higher tier and rare items will be found only on things like roaming commanders or bosses. So you're gonna have to fight to get some of that really good gear, which is definitely interesting. And speaking of those bosses and roaming commanders, they talked a little bit about these sort of expectations for your enemies. We're gonna have scaling tiers of grunts. Tiers 1 to 4 will be your sort of like basic, okay, here's a regular soldier, all the way up to what they call hunt squads, which are probably more specialized and armored enemies, but they also detail there are even higher tier enemies like lieutenants, who are sort of your high value targets, but they're never alone. They roam in packs and have backup with them. They mentioned there's roaming commanders, where these are your hardest enemies, where you're going to need your whole squad's firepower, potentially even multiple squads focusing fire on these to take them out. They detailed one in particular that just sounds actually kind of crazy, is the Juggernaut returns. But the difference this time around is the Juggernaut has depleted uranium rounds, so it will melt armor and vehicles. One of the developers talking about this mentioned that they forgot that they spawned one in while testing things with a helicopter, and just a simple quick flyover melted the health of that helicopter and took it down. So it's going to be dangerous. You're going to have a tall task ahead of you with this. They detailed the highest tier is going to be a roaming tank, or tanks perhaps, but there's going to be a main battery gun, so that actual main tank that'll take out your vehicles in one hit, so you got to be careful. And then the machine gun mounted on that will also be something that shreds through players. They detailed these will have reactive armor, so things like RPGs may not do a whole ton against it, which will be interesting to see how that sort of, I don't know if the word balances out is what I'm looking for, but like how the sort of strategy of taking these out evolve and the best way to do it. Because right now, if an RPG doesn't do much against it, well, that's going to be interesting. They said that's where your highest tier loot will be inside those. So that's something you definitely want to focus on those. Now, survival elements, they added a thing called the Tourniquet, which is this is another option for getting back up, in addition to self-revives. So you're going to have self-revives actually out there in the world, but also these Tourniquets, where the Tourniquet will allow a player to get back up, but at 50 health less than max, which is 150 within this game. So you get up with 100. And come to think of it, I actually think it's the first time we've seen an actual value associated with health given for this being specified. So 150 health is your max. Tourniquets will allow you to get back up with 100, but you need to look for more healing after the fact. One big thing they detailed was like a long-term grind, so kind of your endgame stuff, maybe not necessarily endgame, but perhaps in the same vein. There's going to be some sort of mastery kind of for this. They said replayability is atop their minds, and the things like the Serpentine camo from Modern Warfare 2 was a reference point for that. They said they don't have specifics to give just yet, but long-term grind challenges, multi-step challenges, and that are fun to do are in store here for DMZ in Modern Warfare 4. They also said they know players are a fan of the Serpentine camo and what that did. So for a quick refresher, that required like multiple exfils, multiple runs of specific items, carrying over and trading in different maps. And it was truly like I think like 5 to 6 raid at the minimum you had to do to end up getting this. And then you had to wait for the storm to overtake a certain buy station. Then you could end up buying that. And so yeah, it was a long thing. They said that the spirit of that is in some of the stuff they're working on. So we'll see if we end up having other things like that. Dynamic weather was detailed, which I'm personally a very big fan of in any game, but this, they detailed there's random weather patterns, and it seems like there's going to be different ones depending on the area in the map that you are in, which means there's multiple sort of like micro biomes per match, which is really cool. They said you can go up on a hillside and kind of like look down and see storm fronts coming in to other areas of the map, which is definitely interesting. They also detailed that weather is progressive, so a game could start with a light drizzle and end with a downpour. It could seemingly start sunny and end with a downpour. You just don't really know where that's going to go, but it's going to have a variation of weather systems come and go throughout the match. The final thing it detailed was a little bit about story missions and the types of ways to play, where this is a much more minute detail, but a nice thing to know no less is that for things like story missions, of course, you're all being dropped into the same world with people that are doing dynamic operations, free roam, kill hunting, bounty hunting, all that kind of stuff that, okay, if you just want to do story modes, what is this going to look like? The one thing they detailed was that there's only going to be one story mission per POI active at a time. So if you are that squad that activated that story mission where you're going, you're not going to necessarily have enemy players fighting you to do those specific objective points. There very well could be operators in the AO that you have to be conscious of and be aware of because it's live fire at that point, but you are going to end up having the ability to do those things relatively uncontested. So like you won't have a squad coming to the same objective point that you're at the exact same time. So that's something to bear in mind. But anyways, that is what we learned here out of the, I guess, official reveal for DMZ. We had the embargo and the pre-reveal briefing details that we got to talk about yesterday, but now that we have some gameplay, some COD Pod official details here with this, that's some stuff that was clarified, or again, new information that I think is worth sharing. Now, as for what we have here in the future, I think we're going to talk about our specific feelings and some concerns here in the next couple of days. But other than that, I don't quite know our next discussion on DMZ. I don't really want to dive too far into the nitty gritty here with this just to make a video for the sake of making a video on it. So we'll see what happens in the future, but I definitely am looking forward to seeing what happens with this mode, how it progresses, and of course, come launch, I'm going to be jumping into it. This is what I've been intrigued by from a Modern Warfare title since it was introduced with the beta in Modern Warfare 2. Again, until I get hands-on with things like multiplayer, I don't quite know how I'm going to feel about that. I'm intrigued by the campaign narrative, but exercising cautious optimism here. So we'll see where this goes, but for now, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. What are you looking forward to out of DMZ? Do you like what we learned here today out of the reveal? What do you think of the trailer? Of course, I'm sure that's probably going to be a mixed bag. Some people do not care for that helmet cam display. Some people realize, okay, it was just for the display. Let me know. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things DMZ, Modern Warfare, and even more FPS content. I'd love to have in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.